And this incredibly handsome person who's also very humble talked about feelings of unworthiness and how it's still a work in progress, but how he understands that he has to come from a place of authenticity when sharing his message and not try to prove himself. I had the pleasure to interview Alec Zeck from The Way Forward about a month ago. I can't believe it took me so long to edit this short interview. And it's just because I am a projector and I cannot work and focus for long periods of time on something that I'm not good at, and I'm not very technical. I've had some problems with my iPhone storage, and I could not add the separate audio to the video file. I just could not do it for the longest of times. Still, I believe you're going to enjoy this short interview. We're going to talk about our projector types and how important it is to be authentic. Alec Zeck was one of the first ones who started being very outspoken during the PLANDEMIC that started in 2020, and he began waking people up with common sense and scientific evidence. And what I like about him specifically is that he's very handsome. I'm joking. No. He's handsome, but he's also very humble and very clever. And I like the fact that he wants to experience things for himself. He thinks for himself. And that could also be the profile he has in Projector, which is 4/6. And he learns by trial and error. He's an opportunist and he is a born leader. So it's his duty to put himself on the line and be the voice for people who think the same, but perhaps are afraid to speak out loud for the fear of what other people may think of them. I think we both enjoyed talking about our human design type, which has its advantages and disadvantages, as all the 4 types have. And I am glad that he was very honest with me about the specific challenges he had to overcome and is still working on. And, you know, aren't we all humans a beautiful work in progress? I bet that when Alec was a small child and his mom would tell him, "Oh, don't touch the stove, it's hot, you'll burn yourself," he would probably go and touch the stove, you know, just to really learn his mistake by himself and on his own skin. Me as a projector, I have the 1/3 type, and I learn by trial and error too, and I have a naturally investigative nature. And I just need to take my time with things. So I am happy he talked about the American culture not being very supportive of projectors and their style of working in this world, and how we can utilize the ever-spinning motor of generators to help us execute our visions and ideas. So enjoy this short, low-resolution video that was recorded during Jeff Berwick's speech. I'm not even sure if I can mention his name publicly, but he's perhaps a controversial figure. I have met him in person a few times, and I don't really feel any negative or malicious energy from him. I think that we have to take whatever is written online about somebody with a grain of salt, and just, you know, we all have a shadow, we all have dark past, or just questionable things that, you know, we probably wouldn't do at this age anymore. I think that deep down Jeff means well, and he creates these festivals, whether it's Acapulco or now he's helping to co-create Liberpulco with Jedlička in Serbia. And I believe that these festivals are much needed to generally raise the vibration of the collective consciousness, raise it to peace, love, and freedom. We need people like Alec Zeck and pretty much everybody who spoke on the stage in Serbia and does so regularly in Mexico. in Acapulco. And I think that if you have the opportunity to travel next year, it would be good for you to come and see your tribe and meet new people and make new friends. You never know. You might befriend celebrities.
And we have Jeff in the background. Perfect.
Great.
This is an ideal setting.
Like an Acapulco, Liverpool interview.
Mashup, yes.
In the background.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we're talking about human design. And in fact, I believe I heard somebody talk about or mentioning human design on the stage yesterday.
Really? I wonder who that would have been.
I don't know. Steve Falcon, he spoke
I could
about
see
astrology.
one of them talking about either Steve, Don, because yesterday it was Steve, Don, Mike Wilkerson, Steve Young. So
Lydia?
I could say that one of them, or maybe even Lydia was the same day as me, but Arturo was yesterday, and then David Wolf. I could see really any of them except for David talking about human design, so it could have been any of them. Yeah.
I love
before
this
before we start this, for anyone listening to this or watching, I do not claim to be any sort of expert in human design. So.
And it's not necessary because, as you know, with projectors, it's all about aura, all about energy, all about this indescribable thing that we know we have and we cannot even put a finger on it. It's like we know we're special, but we have that humility to not, act like, oh, I have the best intuition in the world. Because the trouble with projectors is that even though our gut feeling is always right, and everyone's gut feeling is always right, we're more in touch with it. We know that it's for our best to also listen to it and act on it, but we're so self-conscious about it, and we doubt ourselves, we second-guess ourselves, and at the same time we know that if we just harness that power of our inherent leadership and guiding abilities, oh my god, we would have been like the masters of the universe.
Yeah, but it's a tough one because with projectors you can get burnout pretty quick if and that's where waiting for the invitation is so important, because as projectors, because we have this innate knowing, we have a tendency to want to, or at least I'll speak for myself, I have a tendency sometimes to want to prove myself, which leads me to overdoing rather than waiting on that invitation to share my wisdom. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, I feel the same. And sometimes when it came to my family, I felt that the strongest. I just felt like, oh my god, these people don't understand me. I don't know how to make them understand. And then you just know that, well, maybe your input is not welcomed, but how not to silence yourself too much so then you don't put yourself on the line outside of that circle, right? Which was my problem. I think that I came from a family that I always felt like the black sheep and the outsider, and then I felt, oh, everybody must be like that, like I'm not welcomed. And it's funny because when I did past life regression, and also they put me in my mother's womb, I knew that she was thinking about abortion. So I grew up, like I'm not welcomed in this
That's
world.
exactly it. It's so funny. That's not funny. So crazy. Exact same thing happened to me. And I didn't find out till I was 27 that my parents were planning on aborting me because I was an accident. So
Same.
Yeah.
Yes.
Of course he didn't. So I grew up with the same feelings of unworthiness as well.
Crazy.
Which just sort of reinforces the desire as a projector to take this inner knowing and wanting to prove ourselves because we have the the conditioned feelings of unworthiness from our childhood.
Yeah. And we're waiting for a clear invitation, like we are recognized and somebody is seeking us out. And then I feel, that's definitely even when I give the best service, when I know that it's welcomed. So that brings me to my, I think, most important question for you. And that is, can you tell me how you overcame the inherent need to hide, or if you consider yourself maybe a little bit introverted, how did you work with that in order to put yourself on the line and be the voice for so many people around COVID?
So my profile in human design, I mean, I could easily attribute this to human design, but I feel like I've kind of always been this way. That, how bizarre! Like, what kind of... Again, I feel like I have an innate knowing on things, and at the same time, wrestle with feelings of unworthiness, right? And in a way, I don't remember who I was talking to about this, but someone reflected me, like, I think your feelings of unworthiness can sometimes be a good thing in that they keep you in check so that you don't become megalomaniacal and so self-important, right? Number 6. And it's like straight out in the same breath, though, all this stuff. But it's easy for me to get really frustrated for lack of recognition, and that makes a lot of sense because I'm a 4/6 in human design. So a 4 is an opportunist who's someone who's very adaptable, flexible, but also innately prefers to be recognized for their qualities and their work and their knowledge, right? And then a 6 in human design is, what's the word for it? It's not opportunist. Is the role model. And that makes a lot of sense because every role that I've had on any team that I've been on, even if I wasn't the best player, I've always been the captain of that team. I just have an innate capacity for leadership. So that makes a lot of sense too. But overcoming this as you said,
waiting too long and too much, and just trying to, because this self-doubt, who am I to do this? Why me to pick up the reins and guide people? And obviously, if you hadn't done that, oh my God, that's so.
I think I just reached a boiling point in 2020 where I had so much information and I could see so clearly what was happening that a lot of people at that point in time weren't seeing. The first video I made, and I didn't end up putting it out, but I made it nonetheless, was in February of 2020 before anyone was talking about lockdowns or masking or anything like that. And I made a video saying this is no doubt going to be used for mandatory vaccines because I just knew. I just had that knowing, right? And it finally reached a boiling point where I just couldn't be silent any longer. And I did it despite being in the U.S. Army at the time as an Army officer, so it was pretty risky to do what I did, but I just felt so convicted to speak, and I think a lot of other people, maybe the other projectors might resonate with this, feel a deep conviction inside of them, but they let the fear of what others may think consume them. And I think being authentic and just expressing yourself as best as you can in that moment then creates the opportunities where people do ask you to come share your knowledge and present that invitation. Because I think a lot of projectors have the misconception that waiting for the invitation means that you're supposed to just sit around and do nothing and just hold your knowledge inside. That's not necessarily the case. I started just sharing my thoughts on social media. That's it. And
without an agenda, in fact.
Yeah, without an agenda. I was just this is what I see. This is it.
Yeah.
And that's what projectors, we have that innate knowing, right? Mm-hmm. We just have that knowing inside of us. And of course, mine was wrapped up in the analytical scientific language and everything like that. But it all stemmed from just this knowing, you know, and just being authentic and expressing that. And however you are constituted as a projector, it's going to be unique to you. For me, it made sense at the time to just, okay, I'm going to write what I think on Twitter. I'm going to screenshot it and post it on Instagram and just see what happens. There wasn't really any deliberate thought process on how. It just felt right, and I fucking did it. Sorry, I don't know if I can cuss, but I just did it.
Fine.
You know what I mean? And then just doing it, just being authentic and saying what I felt was right to say, being as I felt was right to be, presented opportunities where people gave me invitations to come do things. The trouble is, and again, I can only speak for me, as a 4 profile in human design, is the desire to be recognized. And I'd be lying if I would say, I don't have a desire, absolutely have the desire to be recognized. And desire to be acknowledged for my work. And so sometimes if I feed into that desire too much and am not feeling worthy myself, then I end up overdoing it. Does that make sense? Because I am not validating myself enough, then I'll end up doing way too much. And then that's where it sort of moves out of the window of authenticity into some level of inauthenticity, where I'm doing this just for the sake of some egoic desire to be recognized, and I think I check myself really well on that, but it is a thing that's always there, and I'd be lying if I said otherwise.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for your honesty, and let me then see if I understood it right. So the desire to be recognized, that's perhaps where we have some of the challenges, because it's all projectors. When I check the types, the different split personalities, and they call it split personality, I don't know why. So I am 1/3, and it's the same, like we learn by trial and error and listening to the gut and being authentic and knowing that we have that gift, but we cannot hustle. It's almost like just projectors are born not knowing how to hustle, and we shouldn't do it. We should magnetize people to us. And like you're saying, it's like you started by having a sense of urgency. Could I say it that way?
Yeah.
And I feel like for, if not all projectors, this is the trigger point. It's like, I feel sense of urgency, like this needs to be known. I put it out there, and whoever resonates will come back for more. And also it's acting on inspiration. When you feel like divinely inspired.
Yeah, because your energy is kind of like, you have to be very conservative with your energy and know when to use it, and it's all based on inspiration.
Have you heard that projectors are not meant to work more than 4 hours in a row?
Yeah.
I love that. I love that. Yes. And then, because then we don't give the best of ourselves, or we burn out.
Yeah. And that happens to me because, like, my not self theme, if I remember correctly, is frustration, and it makes total sense. And it's all self-induced, where again, if I am feeling unworthy, which stems from me, like it's not anyone else's job outside of me, but then feeding too much into the desire to be recognized, that portion of the 4 profile, then I will end up overdoing. And if I end up overdoing, then that leads to burnout, because I'm supposed to conserve my energy and just express my knowing based on invitation, and then that leads to bitterness and frustration.
Yes. So I have another question, but before that, my not self theme is bitterness, and I also feel like that is an alarm bell. It's like, you're meant to be cheerful and joyful. That's my natural high vibration state. And whenever I get bitter and I lose hope and I feel like, oh my God, nobody is ever gonna find me and discover me. And you know what? Like, I could totally live with that, but I think I could not live with that thinking that I never tried to wake up people to their bigger potential, or to see the truth. But then again, like, what's the truth? Yep. So my question is, this is all very nice, doing what you love and like presenting yourself as the wise sage and stuff. And I'm talking like for all projectors and these things that come very naturally. But what would you say to people who don't know how to monetize these gifts? Is it possible? And also, it's like, we're not generators. We cannot have an agenda and that hustling drive. So is there any advice for that sphere, like how to become a wealthy projector? Or,
I mean, it's a tough one, especially in Western society, if we want to stick with who we are as a projector, be authentic to that. Being in a place, and I think especially in the United States, where there's such a go mentality, like work as hard as you can, it can be pretty difficult for projectors who, again, are designed to have this innate knowing and then share that when you receive the invitation. And so, for me, I would say it's still like a work in progress. I have found ways to monetize what I do, and they have been based on invitation, but it's taken time. And that has looked like, for example, my podcast, right? I put out information, and then people then come to me based on me putting out putting out information, sharing my wisdom, if you will, and say, hey, I'd like to sponsor your podcast. Or like even as a projector, you can put out what you want, like, hey, public service announcement, I am now doing this, and then you wait for the invitation to come back based on what you're saying. Again, it doesn't necessitate that you just sit there and do nothing and just wait for someone. So for me, like, it was both that someone initially approached us and said, hey, I'd love to sponsor your podcast, and then I was like, oh my gosh, why haven't I done that? Like, no duh. So then I put out, hey, we are now taking podcast sponsorships, and then people now sponsor my podcast.
Right. You rode the wave. It's like,
yeah,
okay.
Exactly, but it takes time, right? And I would say that there's been countless times, especially being an entrepreneur as a projector, where I have been too engaged with my not self theme because of that Western mentality of go, go, go that I've had to chose to engage with, whether I did it wittingly or unwittingly, just a lack of self-awareness of what I was doing. So I just became aware of human design within the last 2 years. So it's a work in progress, but I would say it's like, the gravy there is that to, again, express authentically, share that wisdom that you have in whatever capacity, whatever medium, whether it's in small groups or it's to large groups, or whether it's individually, like as a coach or a counselor, whatever it is. Like, projectors can fill so many different roles, but then based on you expressing authentically, you're just waiting for that to come back to you, and it does take time. You have to be patient. And check yourself when you engage with the go, go, go mentality. And I know there's probably people who will listen or watch this who have kids already, and they're like, I am fully engaged in what a generator should be doing right now. Like, I'm working my ass off way too much. I'm feeling burnout over and over again. I'm engaging in my not self theme, et cetera, et cetera. And I can't say with certainty what the solution is for that if you have kids to provide for and you're in the midst of a situation like that. All I can say is the more that you express your inner knowing authentically, learning to care less what other people think in that. I won't say completely ever disregard what people think, but care less what people think. The more that you're going to get those invitations presented to you that will present opportunities for monetization. Yeah, I hope that answered the question.
Yeah, that's all perfect. Really. Thank you. And when you mentioned careless about what other people think, I had like a pressure in this ear, and that's usually my sign. You know, my body is telling me, it's like, pay attention to that. That's your medicine. You know, just don't care too much what other people think.
Yeah.
And then anyway, your people will find you, but you have to make yourself visible first. You need to be found.
Yeah, as a projector, you can't just go meditate in a cave. Like, that's not going to work for you. And then just wait for the invitation.
Yes.
I mean, maybe you can, like, but if you're wanting to, especially to earn a living as a projector, and engage fully in this life, I guess you could say, then you're gonna have to put out what you think, like put out your inner knowing in some capacity, and that's gonna look different for everyone.
And some kind of spiritual practice, special meditation, should be part of it, totally, but it's not going to really pay your bills, I think, in this world. And that's okay. And you know what? It was a huge relief for me to find about human design also a few years back. It just suddenly made sense, and it's almost like I accepted myself more. It's a huge relief. Then there was one last thing, and I'll let you go to enjoy the festival.
Okay.
Do you think that we could largely benefit from collaborating with more generators? And like that they could be these people behind our visions?
100%. So when you asked your first question about how you can monetize with as a projector, I had in the back of my mind, like, the necessity to take our inner knowing and then find generators and manifestors to take that and manifesting generators and execute. But I know not everyone has that capability. Like, and not every situation requires that as a projector. Again, if you have like individual counseling, you can fully engage in in that action without burning out, just if you're doing one-on-one individual cases, right? But for me, I have people around me, some of whom are projectors, that have also taken on roles in my organization of like generating ideas, but then also generators, manifesting generators, and manifestors around me who take those things and help create upon them, if that makes sense. And I think that's, if you're looking to create an organization, I think it's really important to do that. I think it's like necessary, actually.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
And I have to say, I did recognize your aura. There was something familiar, and yeah.
Projector.
Thank you for recognizing me as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, hopefully I answered okay.